This week we continue with the fight between Spinner and Shoji. It is one of the stronger narrative chapters that we have had in a while. That being said, let's dive into chapter 371 of My Hero Academia, titled Together with Shoji-kun. Immediately we are reminded of the damage Spinner and his army have caused. A bridge overhead has already been destroyed. Shoji continues to question Spinner. Last chapter, he asked the quirk-loaded villain if he considered those in the hospital. After all, it is likely some people there have mutant quirks, which means they will be collateral as Spinner's army tears through looking for Kurogiri. Not thinking of the fact that there are other mutants inside the hospital shows how ill thought out this is. Spinner can't be the cause of a mutant revolution if he is harming his own kind to do it. Unfortunately, that is unavoidable. Shoji won't stop until Spinner is apprehended. That being said, Spinner takes offense at Shoji's question. His thoughts reveal that Spinner doesn't believe he was thought of, or if Shoji cares that he's hurt. Granted, Spinner is also a massive drooling mutant now, so it is hard to empathize. Koda hears Shoji's voice, and right away he is concerned for his fellow hero. As we learned last time, Shoji is separated from Koda. Not only that, but he is separated from the adult heroes there, Rock Lock and Present Mike, which must be scary. They are in the middle of an uprising with no backup. Plus, Spinner can grow as big as a building now. He isn't to be underestimated. Other mutants watch the exchange between Shoji and Spinner. They notice the scars around Shoji's mouth, but dismiss it in favor of following Spinner. They all shout their excitement, some even echoing, "We'll take Kurogiri back, right?" Despite the physical hardship Shoji has faced, they are still focused on their leader. It is obvious Shoji was discriminated against too. Yet to these mutants, Shoji is a traitor for trying to reason with them. And now on the topic of reasoning, Spinner is still struggling to think and talk. All he can do in response to the crowd is drool. Then he finally speaks. "No idea," he says. This small reaction shows Spinner's lack of thinking. He can't even string a full sentence together. Saying two words on its own seems to require a lot of effort. The mutant army is confused by Spinner's response. It's rather casual and vague. It isn't the phrasing becoming of a revolutionary leader. That's probably why the Spider Lieutenant is there. They can spin anything Spinner says, pun intended, crafting a narrative that pleases their insurgents. The mysterious spider tells the army that he means people have no idea how much we've suffered. As he says that, he thinks both Spinner and Shoji are undermining their revolution. Spinner can't be a capable, well-spoken leader. Meanwhile, Shoji is a mutant, clearly a mutant, and yet he isn't on their side. He is still a traitor to them. The spider mutant encourages the crowd, who are clearly waiting on bated breath. They have held this animosity for years. Not only are they hated in pockets of society, they were massacred in a genocidal event. The mysterious spider mutant did touch on that, but we don't know how long ago it was. All we know is that the reasoning for it was because mutants are gross. Shoji knows what it is like to be called disgusting or gross or simply be different. He plainly tells Spinner that this act will set their cause back 30 years. Now Spinner is clearly annoyed, yet all he can do is give a one-word reply. "Shut up." He thinks back to when All for One gave him his arsenal of quirks. We already knew of the gigantification ability, but there's more. As there is always more with the tricky villain All for One is. The other quirk Spinner was given is called durability. It does exactly as the quirk describes. His skin becomes tougher, but this can be augmented. After all, Spinner is meant to become a powerhouse. He is supposed to fill the shoes Giganto Makia left. Scale armor causes a multitude of scales to erupt onto Spinner's skin. The act itself looks painful. He cries out in pain as the force of the quirk causes him to bleed. It is clear his body isn't meant for this. It reminds me of Oyama's naval laser situation. Due to his gecko quirk, Spinner most likely has smooth skin. These rough scales probably irritate it. Although, All for One told him that scale armor would grant raw strength, heightened defense, and the appearance of a true leader. Once again, All for One is appealing to Spinner's ultimate want. He merely wants to be seen the same way non-mutants are. He just wants to be equal. While the quirk overtakes him, Spinner thinks that he'll be fine with anything. He isn't just fighting for other mutants or himself. Spinner is fighting for Shigaraki. He has cast aside his Stain ideology in exchange for the future Shigaraki wants. That being said, we do learn that Shigaraki and Spinner both have League of Legends in common. And so now, all the fanfics about Shigaraki being a NEET on League of Legends are technically canon, I guess. So yeah, kids, this is what too many hours on League of Legends will do to you. As Spinner remembers this, he charges at Shoji. His body is now completely covered in scales. They seem to even cover his eyes, perhaps blocking his vision. Once again, just proving All For One does not care about the effects of quirks he gives people. What matters are results. As he slices off one of Shoji's arms, he tells his mutant army to press on. Both hero and villain are suspended in the air, and we can see the massive amount of mutants below. Blood gushes, while Shoji tries to protect himself from Spinner's sword made of swords. Not to worry though, Shoji's quirk allows him to regenerate limbs. With the scales, Spinner resembles more of a dinosaur now. He is threatening looking, unlike anything he was before. But it's what he wanted. Spinner was discriminated against for his appearance, and it is not like he could fight back. His quirk isn't as combat oriented as someone like Shoji. All Spinner can do is cling to walls. That's why he had the massive sword originally. But now Spinner can hold his own and look scary while doing it. The force of Spinner's attack is enough to send Shoji flying. It also damages the building near them, showing how strong Spinner has gotten. Regardless, Shoji won't give up. Despite losing multiple arms, he is as determined as ever. He probably believes he can still reach Spinner and the mutants below. They all share the common aspect that they are different. Surely they can build off of that. Below, Koda expresses deep concern for Shoji. That's his friend and fellow student. It's a no-brainer he'd be worried about him. Meanwhile, the Spider Mutant continues their propaganda. They encourage the army to do the same as Spinner. Let's grasp the courage and strike back at our oppressors. It's a powerful statement, but it's wrong. Shoji isn't oppressing Spinner. He's trying to save him from darkness. Storming the hospital is only a negative for mutant kind. There is no winner in the game of retribution. The Spider Mutant continues their speech by saying that their movement requires martyrdom, that those that die today will forward their cause. Once again, it is a dangerous ideology. No one has to die. This can be solved without bloodshed. If anything, the mutants are only playing into All For One's hands. If they resist this movement and strive for actual change, they wouldn't have to storm the hospital. Plus, all this does is create infighting. They should be uniting, not cutting down other mutants. Koda sees all this and cannot believe it is happening. He thinks back to simpler times with his classmates. With this flashback, some members of Class 1A are gathered in the common room. There, Shoji gives more backstory. He tells his classmates about the horrific backwater village he grew up in. His parents didn't have the same visible mutation, so Shoji was discriminated against. He was seen as impure, something tainted. It was bad enough that Shoji was literally beaten up by adults, even though he was just a child. He goes on to say that this probably isn't something Tokoyami or Koda experienced because they are from the cities. Once again, we see this parallel between smaller communities and diverse larger cities. Because of this, it is likely the mutants within Spinner's army see Shoji as a city boy. They don't have the context that he was horrifically beaten and discriminated against. They assume he has the privilege of living in a city. If only they knew he had walked in their shoes. In fact, Shoji even tells his classmates that there are still places where adults wouldn't think twice about killing a mutant child. We have gone past discrimination into now genuine, viscerally dangerous hatred. We had an idea of what being a mutant was like in this world, but we didn't know exactly the extent. All of his fellow peers are horrified by this. In particular, Mina especially comments that the world is horrifying and that those people would be better off dead. It's a strong statement, but maybe justifiable. Thankfully, Shoji shows his compassion. He replies, "That's all well and good, but prejudice would still exist." Which is true. You can't stop discrimination without systematic change. After hearing this horrific reality, Mineta is immediately remorseful. He had previously called Shoji an octopus and cries when he apologizes to Shoji. Shoji continues to show grace. He tells Mineta that it's okay because it is only natural to think of that due to his arms. Shoji goes on to say that he picked the name Tentacle so he knows what he looks like. He also says that he likes to watch videos like most villain-looking heroes. So it's not like he's unaware. Fun fact, it's likely that Gang Orca is in videos like that. After all, he is a fellow mutant who looks just as intimidating. Either way, Shoji assures Mineta he isn't offended. However, he knows his appearance and scars may scare people, which is why Shoji chooses to wear a mask. He wants to be a hero without making others fearful or uncomfortable. If anything, it shows how thoughtful Shoji is. Instead of being bitter due to how others would see him, he is willing to accommodate. Tokoyami commends him for this. Shoji continues to say that while he has had painful experiences that he won't forget, he still won't dwell on it. And I gotta be honest, this chapter and the previous one really had me rooting for Shoji. I wish we could have seen more of his dependability, level-headedness, and maturity throughout the series, but it is what it is. Then Shoji remembers something. It is a flashback to the time he saved a young girl from drowning. It is likely this wasn't the same village that discriminated against him. So it speaks volumes that Shoji was willing to lay down his life for someone who saw him as less. If anything, it shows that heroism does not discriminate. Everyone is worthy of being saved, which is the same theme of My Hero Academia. In fact, Shoji was only able to save the young girl due to his multiple arms. With anyone else, it is plausible she would have drowned. The waves were strong enough to push her under. After being rescued, the young girl cries, most likely thanking Shoji. The memory only strengthens Shoji's belief. I choose to embrace the happy memory of the one time I was overjoyed to have this body of mine. Instead of ruminating over it like Spinner, Shoji decided to use his mutant appearance and ability to help others. He didn't give in to darkness. Instead, he chose to follow the lightened path every hero does. After hearing this, all of his classmates rushed to hug him. With tears in their eyes, they promised to give Shoji many happy memories. It's a touching moment that I feel we needed, especially right in the middle of a war. Shoji looks at his friends with a smile, but acknowledges that over a century of hate will take time to undo. However, that doesn't mean they can't take steps to fix society. Back in the present, Koda looks determined and seems to be growing something on his head. It reminds me of Aries' horn, except it looks like a mountain range. We have never seen Koda be capable of changing his appearance. So could this be a quirk awakening? Or could it be that there is more to Koda's quirk than just controlling animals? We then get back to Shoji as he leaps into the air above Spinner. Meanwhile, the monster that is Spinner is climbing literal buildings to get to the young hero. Shoji thinks to himself that he will continue to carry the torch of heroes before him. He will continue to try and bridge the gap between non-mutants and mutants. He wants to become the world's coolest hero and pass it on to the next generation. Again, Horikoshi is illustrating the theme of generations influencing each other. It is likely Shoji was inspired by heroes like Gang Orca or Hound Dog, heroes that look like him. Shoji shouts that he too was a victim of discrimination. He tells the crowd below that the people who oppress them will never be right. He then thinks back to when Deku returned to UA, specifically when the heteromorphic lady he rescued came to comfort him. She was being tormented while Japan was under siege by villains. She wasn't a threat, yet was treated as one due to her appearance and size. He asked the mutant army if there isn't another way. Violence only begets violence. Spinner, on the other hand, has completely given himself over to anger. He charges at Shoji once more, his mouth wide. And it would seem as though he is using his quirk Gecko here, considering he is clinging to a building. We haven't seen him use it in a while, so this is a bit of a treat. Unfortunately, Spinner does tell Shoji that he doesn't care. Society must be torn down and rebuilt for mutants. Like other battles in this arc, it is a fight of ideologies. Shoji believes they can exist with non-mutants. He was welcomed into the hero program after all. Sadly, it is an opportunity of kindness that Spinner and many other mutants never got. While Shoji is right that they can see past their differences and work together, he is also lucky to be in a position with others supporting him. Covered in blood, Shoji responds, "Think carefully on how you channel your rage. After all, we are the ones who carry these scars." The mutants are stunned by his words, but turn their attention back to the Spider Lieutenant. They counter Shoji's powerful words by saying that if it was true, mutants wouldn't have been hurt the way they have. The Spider exclaims that Shoji isn't offering any solutions. He is just lording over them with his attitude. To add insult to injury, he goes on to say that Shoji has been domesticated by humans, that he has lost his will to stand up for himself. It likens believing in peace to being docile to those that are their oppressors. If anything, this mysterious mutant is like another skeptic. He does a good job of rallying others behind him. All the while, he twists the words of the heroes. Thankfully, Koda comes in handy. A flock of birds surround the spider villain. Then we get a close-up of Koda as he angrily and tearfully says, "Don't you dare laugh at Shoji-kun." It's a shot that cements Koda as someone just as important as Shoji during this fight. He proves that he too will stand up for his beliefs. And it's amazing to see how far he has come actually. Koda began as a really shy young hero. Now he is resolutely standing up to a villain and his army that numbers in the thousands. Shoji prepares to attack Spinner, his quirk wrapped around his arm, seemingly bolstering it. Spinner can see him, but barely. He tells the young hero that he is disgusting. It is the same wording that has been used against him, and now Spinner is using it. The cycle of discrimination just doesn't seem to stop. However, Shoji takes it in stride. He tells Spinner, "What can I say? It's just who I am." Very powerful words. In a way, Shoji is acknowledging the horrors he has faced, and now he is staring evil right in the face. But unfortunately, that is where the chapter ends. It is a cliffhanger I cannot wait to see explored. Now in the comments, I'm curious, if you were a heteromorphic quirk wielder in this world, which side would you be on? Shoji's side or Spinner's side? As always, I'm Sliceable Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.